While market research continues to be misunderstood, this univization provides a guide on how to do the right research for your business. Chinardanan Yo of Supercharge Lab takes us through the right questions with Meenakshi Shanmugam of Black Box Research.
Hey, Meena. So good to reconnect with you again. To our audience, my name is Janardhan Yo. I'm a sales development manager at Supercharge Lab. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting with Ms. Meenakshi Shanmugam, or Meena, who is the Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer at Black Box Research, Asia's leading decision science solutions and advisory firm. Meenakshi is an award-winning full-stack marketing executive, brand strategist, and revenue driver with a passion for demand generation, product innovation, and creating compelling brand experiences. In other words, a person who knows what it means to market products and services to the market. Leveraging over 15 years of experience at hyper-growth startups such as Property Guru Group and top marketing and communication agencies such as BBDO and Grey, Meena geeks out on helping companies transform, grow, and scale. I'm excited and honored for the privilege to speak with Meena today about market research and why it's so important for brands and marketers today. Meena, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Janat.
Pleasure's all ours. So I'm going to pepper you with some questions, to sort of pick your brain, try to understand what exactly is market research, the context for those who don't understand, the differences, and essentially what type of company should and shouldn't do market research. All right. So let's begin with the first one. Many marketers today don't really understand the full potential of market research when it comes to delivering results for clients and brands. From your perspective, what are the most common misconceptions about market research?
Okay, so before maybe I get to the misconceptions part, right? So let me just pull back for the audience that you mentioned, right? So market research essentially empowers companies to make more informed decisions that are backed by data, simplistically put, right? So in most cases, gut feelings are not reliable means of making decisions, much less business critical decisions, right? So some examples of decisions that you can make more accurately with the help of market research, given that you're, let's say, in the marketing space, could include things like choosing a different consumer base to target through a new marketing campaign, determining which channels to include in your advertising campaign, deciding whether a product should be discontinued or modified, pricing products in a way that can maintain margins as well as customer appeal. And last but not least, like selecting design and personality elements, for instance, to form a brand persona that will connect your business to better with your audience itself. Mm-hmm. So basically what happens is through market research, you can make this and many other decisions based on data rather than guesses. And as a result, boost your chances of getting it right the first time. Having worked on both the brand and agency side, I would say that almost everyone, agrees that market research is extremely important. But however, the thing that tends to give market research a bad reputation is when companies carry out what I would say unnecessary research. And this is the one that contributes to many of the misconceptions that people have about market research, especially, let's say, organizational leaders, that market research is perhaps one, not valuable, two, it's overpriced, and three, it is even irrelevant. And that's simply not true, right? So these are, if you ask me, there are certain scenarios, common scenarios, where your company should not even do market research. And I think, contribute to further, let's say, misconceptions about the industry itself. So the most common culprit, if you ask me, that contributes towards market research, it's actually on the marketer's side themselves. They don't know what information is it that they need, and more importantly, why they need it and how they intend to leverage it. So in another way to put it, right, what decision do you actually want to make, with the insights that you're seeking or the findings that you're seeking? So because they have, begin a lot of these research projects, they are hoping that it's the market research that is somehow going to give them illuminating insights and stuff. But a lot of times, if you don't know what you're looking, then you don't know where to go, seeking the answers that you need, right? So that's essentially what happens many a times, right? And if the researchers that you engage are not clear on what answers you are looking for, because at the end of the day, you know your market, you know your business the best, and if you yourself can't guide them accordingly, then most probably they will go down the wrong route themselves. And missing the mark on accurate market research can have tremendous impact on on organizations. For example, if for a branding project, for instance, right, it can lead to missing the mark on market awareness or adoption. Or for innovation projects, for example, it can lead new product teams to focus on coming up with, building features that ultimately don't add value to any customer of yours itself.
Meaning
Or
it can actually be a bit wasteful for businesses
exactly,
to not
right?
know.
And it's not only about being wasteful, right? So imagine you build out new features and products. One, it pisses off your existing customers. Two, they are not willing to pay, let's say, the additional price. So you are obviously investing in building out features, hoping that somebody's willing to now pay back that investment, right? So now you're going to
Right.
miss on that part totally,
Right.
right?
So I understand that, like as you mentioned just now, when they miss the mark, like I understand that Black Box has published numerous research studies, right? Being sort of like at the forefront of research. So from your perspective, right, as a person who is actually doing this type of research, what are the most important insights that marketers in ASEAN need to understand to move their marketing initiatives forward?
I think there's a couple of things we can look at it, right? So first and foremost, rather than perhaps discuss industry-specific trends, perhaps maybe allow me to share with you some broad stroke sort of observations and insights on how marketing itself is changing in ASEAN. The first thing is, when we studied marketers all over the world, right? And when we asked them what are their top priorities, what we found in ASEAN was quite interesting. So amongst ASEAN marketers, their top 5 priorities, for instance, is number 1, creating a cohesive customer journey across channels and devices. Secondly, it's about engaging with consumers in real time. Thirdly, it's about innovation itself. Fourthly, it's about improving the use of tools and technologies. Today, there's a dime a dozen tools and technologies out there. But the problem is not about the tools and technologies, but rather how do you, integrate them and kind of, map them all together so that you do get the insights that you want, rather than get lost in all the noise and data that you're collecting instead. And last but not least, it's about improving marketing ROI. The second sort of, let's say, broad stroke insight that I want to leave everyone with, it's about the fact that as customers go more digital itself, as consumers go more digital themselves, marketers also have to step up their digital engagement game, right? And when we asked marketers, when we surveyed marketers itself, one of the things we found is that 90% of ASEAN marketers have said, especially since the pandemic, they have really upped their digital engagement strategy than, let's say, pre-pandemic itself. And globally, they are on par with sort of global responses on this point itself. The third point of it in terms of broad stroke observation would be in terms of data-driven marketing being more important than ever before. So using data to inform your marketing is extremely important, right? Especially when you want to ensure that your customers get the best sort of experience. And more importantly, you're investing your business money to where it drives the most impact for your business itself. So in that sense, I would say ASEAN marketers are kind of ahead of the curve. At least this is all self-reported. So the percentage of marketers who say that their customer engagement is actually data-driven in ASEAN is actually 81% compared to the global average of 78%. And the next area, from a marketing point of how it's evolving itself, is in terms of the matrix and KPIs that marketers are looking at, right? So when we asked, globally, what marketers claim it's their number one sort of metric that they kind of optimize for or really track towards, it's revenue. So 78% of global marketers are looking at revenue as the most important metric. Interestingly, in ASEAN, it also shows where we are as a marketing maturity itself, right? Here, we are still reporting on metrics more towards on the marketing impact itself or on sales funnel itself. So 80% of ASEAN marketers are actually looking more in this sort of matrix. So that could include things like brand awareness, brand recall, more marketing related or lead generation, that kind of thing, or like conversion and whatever, not rather
Speaking
than...
of, like you were saying, in ASEAN, we're ahead of the curve, brand awareness. So I want to touch a bit about, the post-pandemic world that we are in, Like, for instance, consumer sentiment has changed a lot ever since the pandemic happened. People are buying things differently. So listening and understanding consumer sentiments, socio-political commentary is clearly important, right? When it comes to market research. So how can marketers tune into the right social conversations that are relevant to them and leverage them for their own, marketing campaigns?
I think it always goes back to the beginning, as mentioned, right? So I would say always start with a clear hypothesis on what you expect to find and how it's relevant to your business needs, right? This will help you hone in on which social conversations you need to pay attention to. That's one. Two, having said that, don't get too narrow or too broad at the very onset. Do what we call reasonable amount of monitoring in that sense. Second, start by, it helps to understand what your target audience are concerned with, affected by, or influenced by, because you're trying to affect them. So you need to understand what is the trigger that triggers them in that sense, right? So when it comes to, again, watching or looking out for the right sort of social conversations, see what are the things that they have the broader sort of reactions to, especially, and then see, if in the case of marketers and research, if you think about Venn diagram itself, so one of them is essentially about you and your business needs. What is it you are interested in? On the other hand, it's about what do your audience care about.
Customers.
And ideally, you should be looking at the intersection of both, right?
Makes
The
sense.
middle part is essentially your sweet spot, so to speak. So that will help you narrow down, I would say, smartly, rather than just going broad or narrow at the very onset itself. I mean, today, the problem is not about data, right? I think, frankly, people are lost in a lot of data.
Yeah,
with
we're
social media.
drowning in data.
Exactly.
There's just so much, right?
Exactly, right? So I think then the point is really about start with audience understanding, start with your own business understanding and the kind of decisions you want to make, and then try to find the common ground where exactly they intersect.
Right. So the fundamentals, they remain the same. You need to understand what the market wants,
Yes.
right? So, okay, we've been talking about the art. Let's talk about the artists, the maestros, right? Tell us a bit about Black Box and, what you guys specifically do. And let's say there are marketers in ASEAN who want to make use of your services. Like, how exactly can you help them?
So basically, Black Box is Asia's leading decision science solutions and advisory firm. We were founded in Singapore back in 2001. So basically before the world literally transformed in a lot of sense, right? Like at the beginning of, let's say, real digitalization journey itself. And we've kind of seen how not only marketers transform along the way, but literally how the region has been transforming itself at the same time. So we started out essentially as a market research firm like many other companies itself. And today we've evolved into a decisions intelligence firm, helping our clients across the public, private, and social sectors make smarter and better decisions. What we mean by that is because the intelligence we provide is just not data or, let's say, insights. It also goes to the point of subject matter expertise in certain topics, as well as even strategic counsel and advice, right? So like I said just now, you don't always have to commission a research. Sometimes there might be existing things that somebody with an external view can help make sense of, especially your own data. A lot of companies have, like buckload of data internally that they have no time or expertise to piece together, to draw across, let's say, decision models, that could actually support them in making the business decisions that they need, the business intel, so to speak, right? This is, again, the kind of space they can work with us, and we are more than happy to build together the kind of things they need to answer before straight away jumping, saying, no, you have to do a market research study. We can also do market research study if you want, but that's not necessarily our only way to make sense of the world for you guys in terms of your business impact. Yeah.
So in other words, it's equally important to know what not to do as it is to know what to do, right?
Yeah. So a lot of times, I would say what pretty much differentiates, Black Box from many of the research companies out there, it's basically our approach, I would say. We essentially start with our client's end game in mind. So what I mean by that is a lot of times when clients might write to us and say, hey, Mina, hey, team, we want to, commission an X kind of research for X number of markets, X number of, participants and stuff. You're like, stop, right? What decision do you actually want to make, or what outcomes do you actually want to achieve? Let's start with the end game in mind. Then let's reverse engineer. Then we can go towards defining the real questions that need to be answered in order for you to actually, a lot of companies talk about actionable insights, but the insights, if they don't get action, it's pointless, right? So that's why we want to know what are the decisions you want to make. What are the, do you want to enter a market? Do you want to run a campaign? Do you want to launch a product? And then we reverse engineer the process. So what information do you need in order to kind of make this decision? Are there data that's already existing in your market, in your company that we can leverage? Do we really need to do a primary research? Can we look at secondary sources? So we look at all of this to give you that picture itself. And when required, we will also do, let's say, primary market research itself. And what's again different is we are not going to say, here's your market research and we walk away. If that's what you want us to do, we are more than happy to do that. And that's what many research agencies today do. We do the research, we give you the report, thank you very much for engaging us, and they walk away. But what's different about us is many of our clients actually continue working with us after that in terms of creating action plans and programs that land inside the organization and measuring and optimizing the plan subsequently. So it's not like a one-off engagement. They actually work with us as strategic business partners on a slightly longer term engagement. Yeah.
Right. So your answer that relates to engagement, I had a question that popped out to me. Like, how similar or different are the different consumers in the ASEAN countries? Like, what differentiates them?
Consumers. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of, I think the key, it depends really on context itself. But if you ask me, I think how similar they are is in terms of their adoption of digital technologies and tools itself. A lot of them, I mean, including, let's say, more on the emerging market side, as well as the slightly more developed markets in ASEAN. Today, everyone is online, right? So it's about, what we call leapfrogging technology, right? You don't go from, just because you're an emerging market, you're not going to go through 1G, 2G, 3G, or 4G. If you were a 1G market, you're going to leapfrog straight into 4G or 5G. And that's what we see happening in many of the emerging markets itself. So when it comes to digital engagement and strategies, don't for a minute, put your lenses on socio-economic status onto the markets itself. Like, say that, okay, maybe example, Singapore is a developed market, or another market is perhaps like Indonesia is the emerging market in that sense. I don't think those kind of tinted lenses make sense anymore when it comes to certain kind of decision making. Right. The second thing itself would be more about in terms of what we would say. I would say actually a lot of times the emerging markets are actually a lot more open to digital opportunities because digital is kind of a leveler for them rather than really, like a discriminator in that sense. So I would say there's a lot of opportunities for you to look across all the markets. The second thing is actually you should, I would seriously urge you guys to go and check out one of the key interesting study we did in ASEAN. It's about there's a lot of talk today about sustainability, social consciousness and everything. And we actually did a very specific study on sustainable travel in ASEAN. What was interesting is that actually the more emerging markets they are, or the bigger markets that they are, like let's say your Indonesia or your Malaysia or your Thailand, they're actually a lot more high up in the eco-consciousness compared to so-called developed countries like, let's say even Singapore for that matter. I think Singapore is frankly the worst out of all, let's say, the key ASEAN markets, right? So these are again to show that, it's not a one-size-fits-all. There are some areas where ASEAN consumers in certain markets might be seen as more evolved or ahead of the curve. And in other aspects, let's say in social equity or, sustainable consciousness, consumers actually from more emerging markets actually are a lot more eco-consciousness or sustainable travel consciousness. So I would say, keep an open mind, whatever bias or perceptions you have, get it tested ideally, or read up on them at the very minimum online through various, great publications out there that gives you, debunks a lot of this with actual data and insights. Yeah.
All right. Wonderful, Meena. That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for these insights. It has been most enlightening. And
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for being part of Supercharged Labs Turbocharged Live 2022. Speak soon.
Thank you. Bye.
A revolution in digital marketing is happening. Get ready to disrupt the way you work, all in one click. With the click of a button, Sigmund helps brands and agencies understand the shortest path to success for your media, creative, SEO, and digital strategy. By understanding millions and millions of data points, Sigmund psychologically profiles your customers, benchmarks your position against the competition, and autonomously executes your strategy through agile experimentation. Forget spending hours doing research or looking for inspiration. Get blown away by Sigmund. Disruption in a click, powered by AI.